I was part of a writing group for a little while, and one of the women who was in this group said to us that she joined it because she wanted to make sure she wasn't writing chick lit, which was a term I think some of you might be familiar with from a few years ago. That's it. She said, I don't want to write chick lit. Now, what she wanted to write, I think, was literary fiction, but what she said was, I don't want to write chick lit. And I was reminded of a friend of mine once who was writing a book who said, yeah, I'm writing this book. I just don't want it to be YA. I don't want it to be young adult. And it struck me that it is very hard to write a book that isn't something. That is, you say, well, I don't want it to be chick lit, or I don't want it to be boring, or I don't want it to be YA, or whatever it is you don't want it to be. Because if it isn't that thing, it can be anything else. You have to focus on the thing you want it to be, not the thing you don't want it to be. It's very sort of axiomatic, but it's worth remembering, particularly when we are not writing, when we are probably, if you're like me, capable of, prone to complaining. Hmm? Yeah. Complaining is we see something we don't like and we talk about it. We say, look at that thing. I don't like it. I wish it wasn't there. Oh, I wish I had more money. God, I don't have enough money. I want to have more money. I don't sell. I want to sell more books. How come I'm not selling a lot of books? I haven't sold a lot of books. Wish I was selling more books. And, it's worth noting sometimes in our lives when something comes up that we don't like, because if we don't like it, that means there's something that we do want, right? We read something we've written and go, that's boring. Well, what do we want? We want it to be entertaining. We want it to be exciting. We want it to be focused. We want it to be full of energy. But sometimes we just focus on it's boring. It's boring. I don't want it to be boring. I wish I had more money. I like this. And when we complain, what we do is we describe the thing we don't want and keep talking about how it exists and how we don't like the fact that it exists. And writing has taught me, perhaps like nothing else, that the job of a creative person is to focus on what you want to create it. That is, you can't sit around thinking about if you don't want to write a romance and sit around thinking, I don't want to write romance. I don't want to write romance. I don't want to write romance. What do you want? What do you want it to be? You don't want to be boring? Well, what does exciting feel like? What does interesting feel like? You want to sell books? Well, how would you do that? It's a simple shift from if you say, God, I don't sell any books. I'm not selling enough books. Well, I wonder how I would sell more books. How would I do that? You may not have an answer, but at least you are not focusing on the thing you don't want. And I know, look, sometimes the most powerful creation comes from the beginning of us being upset about something, of disliking it. I remember the romance writer Jerry Russell describing to me how she started her career in a way because she was reading these romance novels while she was laid up in bed with her child, and she didn't like the ending. So that meant that there was an ending she did want. And she got so frustrated with the ending she was reading that she eventually had to write the endings herself. And eventually, after writing enough of the endings herself, she started writing her own books. So the experience of seeing stuff you don't like, whether it's books you don't like or stories that you don't like or even life experience you don't like, is really powerful to create the creative energy, to generate the creative energy necessary to write the stories you want to write, say, live the life you want to lead. So, yes, the experience of seeing something you don't like is powerful. I don't like the injustice. I don't like the poverty. That's fine. But let your mind immediately go to what you do want. That is where creativity happens. It doesn't come from complaining. I'm sorry. And if you can, I've done this experiment. I did this experiment once and it was so powerful that I've tried to keep it as a practice. See if you can go a day without complaining. See what happens. Not so easy, but don't speak it. Don't speak it. It's not easy. I get it, and probably you will. But it makes you rest. And instead of speaking the thing you don't like, take a moment and turn your attention to what you do. Look, you're practicing it all the time when you write. You are. You're practicing it all the time. You sit there and focus on what you want and what you want, and the story you want, the next sentence you want, the description you want. It is a it is a forward-looking, positive view of creation. You don't sit around for the most part when you're writing thinking about stuff you don't want because you can't write anything if you do that. Let your life be that way too. See if you can drop the complaint and see what's on the other side. See, because there's always something. There's something positive on the other side of the negativity of the complaint. It's true, people. It's true. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I do love sharing these with you. And so if you don't want to miss them, then, hit subscribe. And as always, if you like it, say so. Say so. Let your voice be heard. So till next week, this is Bill Kenower. Stay fearless.